Now, for more on this practice, what it means to the wider U.S. economy, we're joined by Steve Hanke. He is an applied economics professor at Johns Hopkins University. Steve, welcome back. Good to see you in this holiday season.
Great to be with you, Sean.
You know, we talked about this in our meeting, and I was the one that suggested this story because every time we've been talking to people about the economy, virtually every person, unprompted, brings up this concern about buy now, pay later. A lot of people are worried that it's kind of like a depth charge floating around out there that could go off and severely affect consumers and the U.S. economy. Your thoughts?
I think it's a bad policy. I mean, a bad practice. Basically, you're buying on credit. And if you don't have the money to pay for something now, don't buy it.
But let's talk a bit more about it, though, because the holiday season tugs at people's heartstrings. They want to get something for their aunt or whomever, and people are going to do it. They're going to reach out as much as possible. So how can you tell people, look, I know you have the best of intentions, but you have to worry about your bottom line moving forward?
Well, I'm on this issue. I'm extremely old school, and that is, you don't buy consumer goods on credit. That's just a bad way to proceed, because at the end of the day, you might buy now and be very happy now, but when you get the tab later on, and all the finance charges and everything else associated with it, you got a problem.
How do you think? I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish.
So at any rate, that's my thought on that. As far as the inflation number goes, with Sean, you started that. It went down from 3% to 2.7%. I think this is a big fat distortion because the government was shut. They didn't start collecting inflation data, price data, until mid-November, and Black Friday it was included in that sample that they did, which a lot of discounts occurred on Black Friday, and that distorted the data tremendously. So the data are kind of the 3% versus 2.7%. It's an apples and oranges thing. You really can't compare it. It's a huge distortion. And basically, in your lead up, it was a good summary. I disagree with the Democrats, I disagree with Trump, and I disagree with the Fed.
Who do you agree with out there right now, Steve?
Well, I agree with the quantity theory of money, and that is inflation. The inflation story, Sean, is always a money supply story. And what worries me now isn't exactly these numbers we're looking at right now, but it's the fact that we're going to, I think, have a great loosening of monetary policy and an acceleration in the growth in the money supply. And the inflation genie will never be put back in the bottle. That really is what's going to happen. The federal funds, and I have four factors.
Right.
The federal funds rates will continue going down, the interest rates. Point one.
Okay.
Point two, this month the Fed has stopped quantitative tightening and moved to quantitative easing where they're starting to buy treasury bills, and that will increase the money supply. Three, in April, the supplemental liquidity ratio, reserve ratio will come off of commercial banks, giving them probably $2.5 trillion worth of firepower, and they will loan more money. And when that happens, the money supply goes up. And the fourth factor is this continual drumbeat from the White House to loosen the money supply. So it looks to me like inflation is going to be a problem.
And couple that, and I think that those are all well thought out and very logical, couple that with the more buy now, pay later options that are floating out there. How concerned are you about that if inflation continues to go up, what that could do to the U.S. economy?
Well, in that sense, going back to what I said earlier, buying retail items on credit is just not the way I was brought up. So I just don't believe in it. I think it's a bad thing for personal finances to be buying now and paying later, buying on credit. However, if indeed you do think that inflation is going to pick up and is right around the corner, it's better to buy now than buy later,
Steve,
because prices later will be higher than they are now. And that's what happens in the marketplace, actually. People who are anticipating more inflation will tend to load up on things now rather at what are in fact lower prices than will be the case in 6 months from now.
what do you think when Donald Trump says we have an A+++ economy?
I think it's just rubbish. That's what I think. I think, in fact, we've had a tremendous amount of grade inflation, by the way, even at universities. As you indicated, I'm a professor at Johns Hopkins University, and even at a place like Johns Hopkins and all the Ivies, you have huge grade inflation.
Yeah.
In the 1950s and 1960s, the grades averaged 3.2 to 3.8% in the Ivy Leagues. Now, at Harvard, the average graduate has a grade point average exceeding 3.8 out of a 4-point scale. So you get a lot of grade inflation going on all over the place. Everyone is exaggerating everything.